All right, stop the presses. Michael Saylor just literally pitched an $81 trillion Bitcoin plan to cancel national debt in the US. Yeah, you heard that right. Cancel it. Poof. Gone. The man with the laser eyes has dropped a framework that could flip America's balance sheet from hopeless to unstoppable. And folks, he didn't stop there. Saylor is out here on CNBC telling folks that Bitcoin is going to be a $200 trillion asset. He told Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund to go all in on Bitcoin. And now he says the S&P 500 will depreciate against Bitcoin forever.
It's going up forever, Laura.
This isn't just Bitcoin hopium. The US Treasury is literally holding roundtables on a strategic Bitcoin reserve. States like Michigan are advancing Bitcoin reserve bills. And countries like Laos, they're mining Bitcoin to escape debt traps. So today, we're breaking it all down. Saylor's master plan, why Bitcoin beats the S&P forever, MoneyWeek's insane admission, Kevin Durant's Bitcoin story, Gary Gensler admitting that there's Bitcoin and then there's everything else. And finally, what happens if America misses this train? Spoiler alert, Bitcoin wins anyway. Buckle up, because it's Satoshi time. Let's start with the big one. Michael Saylor on Tuesday met with a group of lawmakers in a roundtable event to discuss the Bitcoin Act, a bill to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And something big is coming. Quote, legislators and the executives at yesterday's roundtable agree there is a need for a strategic Bitcoin reserve law to ensure its longevity for America's financial future. Haley Miller, Director of Government Affairs and Public Policy at Digital Power Network, told Cointelegraph. Most attendees are looking for next steps, which may mean including the SBR within the broader policy frameworks already advancing. Now, here's where it gets super bullish. According to Michael Saylor's framework pitched to the government, a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve could generate up to $81 trillion for the Treasury, enough to literally wipe out America's debt. This is a Fortune 500 CEO whose companies have literally been obliterating the S&P 500, who's already orange-pilled his own company and now is orange-pilling the entire U.S. government.
I'm particularly pleased with President Trump's support of my Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Initiative, which will address our national debt while securing America's position as the global leader in financial innovation. As Bitcoin comes into more usage, its use makes the whole system more secure, more robust, and more capable of serving our needs all over the world. We should be the global leader with this fantastic new ledger-based asset that is in a digital format that is going to be transformative of everyday economy and puts the everyday American, in fact, the everyday worker all over the world in control of their own money. What a wonderful blessing for hardworking people all over the world to have this great new technology and to have America lead the way in implementing this wonderful, wonderful innovation.
You already know that the Bitcoin Senator, Cynthia Lummis, is backing the idea and standing ready to send it. There is no longer fringe. It's in the halls of power.
Our next guest is one of Wall Street's most vocal Bitcoin bulls, recently meeting with members of the House Financial Services Committee to discuss what he calls his digital assets framework to help the U.S. become the global crypto leader. Joining us now in a CNBC exclusive is Strategy co-founder, executive chairman Michael Saylor. Strategy announcing this weekend it delivered a Bitcoin gain of $2.6 billion so far this year. Michael, it's paid to keep buying no matter what. My question is, how much are you involved? Because I know you've met with members of the Trump administration, cabinet, family members, I think the president himself. So are you involved in advising around this strategic crypto reserve?
I've met with
a bunch of senators on the Democratic and the Republican side, a bunch of Congress people, a few members of cabinet, a few members of the administration, and anybody that wants to talk. You know me, for the last 4.5 years, I'm willing to talk about Bitcoin to anybody, anywhere in the world, every day.
Yes, and we appreciate that, talking to our audience about it. So were you surprised that in the announcement over the weekend, the president mentioned other smaller coins like XRP, Solana, and Cardano, as well as Bitcoin for the Strategic Crypto Fund?
I'm not surprised. I mean, I think there's no way to interpret this other than this is bullish for Bitcoin and is bullish for the entire U.S. crypto industry. There are conservatives that view the right path forward is just a Bitcoin-only policy because Bitcoin is a commodity, an asset without an issuer, a neutral asset, and there's no controversy. But the president's adopted a more liberal economic policy, and that's his right. He's president of the United States.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you would have preferred it, though, if it was a Bitcoin-only fund.
I believe that the best thing for the country is to move forward with an enlightened, progressive policy toward digital assets. I think it's worth $100 trillion to the United States, and ultimately there's 4 different assets that people need to come to grips with. A digital commodity like Bitcoin, an asset without an issuer, backed by digital power. A digital currency like a stable coin backed by a fiat currency equivalent. A digital security, an asset with an issuer backed by a stock or a bond so we can tokenize Wall Street. And then a digital token, which is an asset with an issuer that's backed by digital utility. I think everybody's trying to come to grips with that taxonomy. And as the market gets more educated, we're going to see more progressive, constructive policy engagement.
But as it relates to the crypto fund, I guess, one thing people are going to try to figure out, and what the White House is going to have to explain, is why we need that. I get that you think the price of Bitcoin is going up sharply, and you've definitely put your money where your mouth is, but it is still a speculative asset. So is it just about investment gains for the U.S. government, or is there another strategic reason, say like oil, we have that, where we would need this?
The key to keep in mind is that Bitcoin is not competing with the dollar. It's competing with international real estate, global equities, expensive money managers on Wall Street, and any long-range investment that somebody makes. And so right now we're about $2 trillion in Bitcoin. It's going to 20 trillion, then it's going to 200 trillion, then it's growing 20% a year. And that capital is coming from overseas. It's coming from China, from Russia, from Europe, from Africa, from Asia, from the 20th century to the 21st century. So what's compelling about it is if the United States takes a position in the emerging crypto economy, if it buys up 10, 20% of the Bitcoin network, we're going to pay off the national debt. And so why wouldn't that be in the interest of the United States?
I guess the question would be, we're dealing with instruments that historically, Michael, have had drawdowns of, you name it, I mean, 20, 40, 50%. How much risk, or what would that do to sentiment if, in fact, that was a paper loss, even momentarily, for the government?
I don't think anybody's ever lost money in the Bitcoin network holding 4 years. The United States' best investments are Alaska, Mexico, California, and Louisiana, and Manhattan. We're still holding them hundreds of years later. It's a nation state. So presumably, you want to buy Bitcoin, you want to hold it for 100 years. You know where the future's going. The AIs, the foreigners, the Europeans, the 20th century capitalists, they're all going to cyberspace. And so the United States has the ability to buy this for a nickel and pay off the national debt. It'll be the greatest economic program of the 21st century for this country.
How do you think it gets funded?
I mean, I think that I'd leave that to the president's working group. They'll eventually decide what they want to do and the scale they want to do it. There are a dozen people on it, the head of the Treasury, the SEC, the CFTC, Commerce, the Attorney General. The president, I'm sure, will opine. Yeah. I'm sure you'll have leadership from Tim Scott and French Hill, both the Republicans and the Democrats. Everybody's going to have their opinions. It's above my pay grade to decide. But what I would say is this. We bought Manhattan for 60 guilders. It was a good trade. We bought Alaska for $6 million. It was a good trade. We paid $40 million for 75% of this country. It's a good trade. We can afford it. We should buy the future.
I mean, but what, and you've done this before, you've talked about this before, but comparing a cryptocurrency digital asset that is still considered highly speculative to American cities and states.
Well, Bitcoin's not highly speculative to the 500 million people in the crypto economy. It's the best performing asset in the past 15 years, and generally the best performing asset every single year. My company's gone from a $250 million investment to almost a $50 billion position in 48 months. So clearly there's enormous economic energy in this asset. It is probably the most certain thing in the financial universe if you have a long time horizon.
I have another sort of, and this might be like a legal question, but as this becomes more adopted, and if we're talking about a strategic Bitcoin reserve or crypto reserve, how do you prevent insider trading, front running? You know, there's no insider trading laws because they're not securities. So Trump can just, you know, tweet about X coin and someone can front run it.
The reason that there's so much support for a commodity like Bitcoin is it is an asset without an issuer. No entity controls it. No entity runs the network. No entity can change the protocol. No entity has enough power to impact the market trading of that protocol. That's actually why most of the focus is on the digital commodity. And that's what makes Bitcoin special. Satoshi was the insider. He left 1 million Bitcoin for all of humanity forever and walked away without ever benefiting. And that's what makes Bitcoin special.
Do you think that any other asset should be in the strategic crypto reserve?
You know, I think if you're looking out over the next 100 years, trying to figure out how do you capitalize a nation state or a country, what you want is a digital commodity. But if you have a sovereign wealth fund, then I think it's well within the rights of the leader of the nation to decide to put, you know, proprietary assets, securities, tokens, and the like into it. And of course, the decision will eventually be made through a fairly comprehensive political process over the next 6 months. We have till July 22nd when the digital assets framework and recommendations from the executive order are due on the president's desk. It should be interesting to watch what happens between now and then.
Well, Michael, we certainly appreciate you coming on to talk us through how you're thinking about all this. As one of the biggest proponents, Michael Saylor from Strategy.
He's not talking about a hedge anymore. He's talking about Bitcoin as the base layer of global finance. 20% of the network in U.S. hands. National debt gone. Global dominance locked. And if you think he's just talking to D.C., think again.
Answer.
He straight up told Saudi Arabia's $930 billion sovereign wealth fund, if you want 1,000x your money, buy Bitcoin. Not oil, not tech, Bitcoin.
There's only room for one nation state to buy up 20% of the network. And obviously, I think it should be the United States. I think it will be the United States. It's a way for us to enrich ourselves and emerge as a creditor nation in a matter of a decade. It's also a way for us to ensure that we're the economic leaders in cyberspace and the digital economy for the next 100 years. And if we do that, every one of our allies will follow us, and then all of our enemies will end up having to buy into the network once it passes 10 or 20 million a coin, and they will enrich us.
The inconvenient nation-state game theory reality. Only one nation can buy up to 20% of the Bitcoin network. And Saylor says it should be the United States. What's that they said once? Yes, we can. I'd like to bring that back for this. I'm kidding. And if that wasn't enough, Saylor just went further. He said Bitcoin will outperform the S&P 500 forever. Not that it already hasn't been for the last 15 years, but I digress. Not for a cycle, not for a decade, forever.
So what we discovered is Bitcoin is digital capital. Bitcoin is going up faster than the S&P forever. right? Once you actually acknowledge that Bitcoin is appreciating more than the S&P forever, and my forecast is it appreciates about 29% a year for the next 21 years. And I've shared that with the community. But you could have any forecast. But if Bitcoin is an asset and it's appreciating, then you can create credit collateralized by that appreciating asset. So Bitcoin's digital capital appreciating faster than the cost of capital. The cost of capital is the S&P 500 return. Mm-hmm. And then credit written against it or issued against it is digital credit. And the digital credit can have longer duration or it can have short duration. It can have higher yields. It can be in any currency because Bitcoin is a stronger currency, right? One of the keys in the credit market is if you're going to issue a credit instrument in a currency, you want it to be weaker than the collateral you hold. So if you issue the credit in a currency which is stronger than the currency you hold, you'll be upside down and you'll go bankrupt.
He claims the S&P will depreciate 29% a year against Bitcoin. Translation, your 401k index fund is a melting ice cube. The 60-40 portfolio, dead. We are entering a 100/0 Bitcoin world. If he's right, and history says he might be, we're not just watching a market rotation. We're watching the birth of a $200 trillion Bitcoin economy. And it's not just Saylor pumping this idea. Even MoneyWeek, a mainstream UK financial publication, just admitted Bitcoin is the reserve asset of the internet. They highlight how the UK just lifted its bans on Bitcoin ETNs, how BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust exploded into an $88 billion juggernaut, the fastest growing fund in Bitcoin history. Think about that. Wall Street's biggest asset manager just had its most successful product launch ever. And it wasn't a stock. It wasn't a bond. It was Bitcoin. And this trend is global. Laos, a tiny country in Southeast Asia drowning in debt, just turned to Bitcoin mining. They built all these dams, had too much power, and now they're monetizing wasted energy with Bitcoin. Who says Bitcoin wasn't environmentally friendly? This is how sovereign adoption spreads. And speaking of adoption, just wait until you hear what NBA superstar Kevin Durant just said about his Bitcoin bag. Quick timeout, but this one's important. Today's show is brought to you by Ledn. Need cash without selling your Bitcoin? Ledn makes that possible. The global leader in Bitcoin-backed lending, Ledn has issued over $9 billion in loans since 2018 and a perfect record of protecting client assets. Why is a Ledn loan different? With custodied loans, collateral is not lent out to generate interest. No credit checks. Funds in less than 6 hours. No monthly payments. Repay whenever you want with 0 penalties. And proof of reserve reports verified by a top accounting firm are published every 6 months. Ledn gives Bitcoin holders a secure, transparent way to unlock liquidity without selling. Learn more at learn.ledn.io/simply. Now let's get back to the show. Let's talk Kevin Durant and Gary Gensler again affirming that there is Bitcoin and there are shitcoins.
Are you the responsible party?
Sure, he knew about Bitcoin, but I gave him a little nudge, yeah.
You give him a how did you give?
No, he didn't. He called me in like 2014, 15. We got on a call with our business manager at the time, who just like shut it down and was like, "You guys, like, stop."
Hold on. Go backwards. So you how did you learn about Bitcoin?
Just scrolling on YouTube, to be honest. Can't lie to you. And then I just seeing so many videos of seminars of people like this talking about cryptocurrency and how's the future of the world. And I was always into like futuristic, the new technology coming, how our world can change. And I felt like that was something that could be consistent and can last. And I mean, here we are now, 10 years later, we're still talking about it.
I lost him some money because had we bought it at that point in 2014, 15,
yeah.
But about a year later, right when he signed with the Warriors, Ben Horowitz hosted a dinner for Kevin for his birthday, and the whole Warriors team came. And at the end of that night, I was like, Kevin, I just heard the word Bitcoin 25 times this evening. And the next day, we started investing in Bitcoin. And fortunately, we've yet to be able to track down his Coinbase account info, so we've never sold anything, and his Bitcoin is just through the roof.
So they lost the password.
No.
And they think that's a great thing because they never sold.
NBA superstar and apparently an early Bitcoiner. Ladies, check out Kevin Durant. Is he married? Hold on. I just want to do this for my girls. Ladies, I am happy to report he is single. Go get your bag. No, that's terrible. Don't put that in there. Oh my God, that's awful. Okay. Durant says he got in early, held through the chaos, and just recovered his account. But further proof, the sound money gospel is spreading. As he said, watching things on YouTube, he was able to learn, and now he's sitting on a nice Bitcoin stack while his fiat melts. I wonder if Katie has seen every single Simply Bitcoin episode. That would be insane. But this isn't just for nerds anymore. It's mainstream. The jocks have entered the chat because everyone needs sound money.
They are reversing a lot of what you did. And how are you feeling about what they're doing now?
So I'm very proud of what we accomplished.
And the crypto community is ecstatic not to have you there anymore and to have him there. Looking back on it, I mean, do you think that was the right call?
Yes, I think.
Because look, now we have this like burgeoning industry and there's so much more innovation and leadership in the U.S.
And a lot more
crypto.
capital coming into it.
There may be more capital in terms of the interest in the public. The public is interested. I get that. But for investors.
You think this is dangerous, what they're doing?
Put aside Bitcoin. But most of the other tokens are not tied to any fundamentals. Like Warren Buffett would say, what are the goods? What are the revenues? What are they selling? And so forth.
This isn't the first time Gary has been caught saying, put aside Bitcoin. The rest aren't tied to fundamentals. I don't know if that sounds like Gary, but that's like my impression of him. I gotta say, Gary was totally underrated as a Bitcoin maxi, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. But here's the $1 trillion question. What if the US ignores Saylor? What if they miss the play? Well, spoiler alert, Bitcoin still wins, which means we win. As James Lavish put it, the year is 2035. Federal debt has doubled to $75 trillion. The Fed has printed to oblivion. Bitcoin soared past $2 million. Oof, sounds good. And you wish you understood it sooner. That's the path if the US sits this one out. Either America front runs the world, or the world front runs America. Either way, number go up, I guess. Here's the bottom line. Michael Saylor isn't pitching fairy tales. He's laying out the escape plan from a debt spiral that ends in collapse. And every day that the US drags its feet, other nations are moving. Laos, Saudi Arabia, even Michigan are passing reserve bills. The world is converging on Bitcoin. So what do you think? Should America adopt Saylor's $81 trillion Bitcoin reserve game plan? Drop it in the comments, smash the like, subscribe to our channel, and before we roll out, Mining Disrupt 2025 is coming in hot, and you don't want to miss it. The biggest Bitcoin mining event of the year is taking over Dallas, Texas, November 11th through the 13th. This may be the most important Bitcoin mining event in history. The biggest names in the industry, cutting-edge rigs, Bitcoin and AI integration, the signal you won't get anywhere else. Grab your tickets today and use promo code SimplyBitcoin for 20% off, and we'll see you there. That's it for today's show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends. Set those notifications to on, and until next time, stack, slay, and stay bullish, baby.